Hello, I'm Adama Williams. Welcome to Ed Table Talk Unplugged, an Independence Anniversary Special Edition, 50 Years Progressing in Education. This show is a production of the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training. In this edition, we dialogue with former education directors as we get their perspectives on the progress of the Bahamian education system over the past 50 years, while examining their direct contributions and impact on education. Yes, in 1973, our nation was born, and we knew that we possessed the brilliance, the natural and human resources to thrive and build a great nation. Paramount to this objective was the need to expand access to education. This was the passport to a sustainable future for all Bahamians. So today we will dialogue with our former Director of Education, Mr. Mark Willson, who was definitely a part of the post-independence education system in its earlier years. So we're happy to welcome our former Director, Mark Willson. It's so good to have you with us.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Right, and I think you would have served during the late 80s as Director.
That's
Wonderful, right. And I know that must have been an awesome experience for you, having recently transitioned to an independent nation. But we're going to get into all of those details because I'm excited to finally speak with you. So prior to the Bahamas gaining independence in 1973, we knew that education and access to education, it wasn't easy, very minimal to regular folks that looked like me and you, all right? But we knew that education, like I said, was a vehicle to a strong and vibrant nation. It was essential to our national development, and it still is. Consequently, it was number one on the government's agenda to ensure that this access was expanded to the masses, to everyone on every island, black, yellow, red, white. So the late Marjorie Davis, who was our first female education director, saw the genesis of this transition, this expansion through her tenure. You succeeded her and continued the mission. Now, before we get to all of your work and the impact, the foundations that you would have laid down, tell us, educate us a bit about what it was like pre-independence in the education world.
Okay. Just imagine that you were a parent and you had two children, one of whom was nearing the age of 14, and the other of whom was 5 years old. At age 14, that child could be asked to leave school. And at age 5, that child would be admitted to primary school and would be admitted to a grade level they call the preparatory level.
Preparatory?
Yes, which means that they were preparing that child to be educated at the primary level.
Okay.
That was painful for most parents, and for many teachers, it was a painful experience.
Can't imagine.
And so it was not pretty at all.
Mm-hmm. Wow. After independence, in 1973, our country began to make great strides in education. We saw increased access for Bahamians of all ages and all classes. As a Bahamian educator, recently free, I'm going to say set free from colonialism and those barriers and a plethora of social inequalities. What was that? You were there. I mean, I was there too, but I wasn't old enough to feel it like how you felt. What was that feeling like to see it all unfold?
Exhilarating, I think, is the correct word to describe it.
Sure.
At that time, I was serving in Grand Bahama, and I don't know if you've ever been told about the Family Island people who used to march in the streets when they wanted to celebrate. Well, we marched in the streets, all 450 students in the Lewis Yard Primary School at that time.
What island was that again?
Grand Bahama.
Grand Bahama.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I was in Lewis Yard Primary, and all 450 students marched in the street.
What if I'm getting goosebumps and that was years ago?
But that was the feeling. You know, one of my students came to me and said, "Mr. Wilson, are we free?"
Are we free?
Yes.
Wow.
And I said, yes.
Wow.
You are free.
That's powerful. And so, right before independence in 1973, the prevailing colonial system of education was denounced and a white paper was formed. This white paper was published by the Ministry of Education, and it focused on the future of education, highlighting what education should look like, what we want it to look like for our people in the future. Now, we don't need to go into the fine details of the specific goals that the paper contains, but give a general idea or concept of if you think that the standard of that paper has been met over the last 50 years, because the focus was to enhance education, a better education for all.
Yes. The white paper basically focused on equitable education, and it said basically that our goal is to strive towards an education that is as nearly equal as possible. Yes. Those were the exact words. That was really a rallying cry, because every principal in the Family Islands in particular took that to heart and did in fact try to deliver the standard of education that was as equal as their counterparts all over the Bahamas.
Right. And I know that was difficult. And I think we may still be having some challenges today with that equity in terms of ensuring that children on the Family Islands, our students on the Family Islands, all the way in the north, those more remote islands, are getting their equal share of all of the subjects that are being offered here in New Providence. So I'm sure you would think that continues to be a work in progress, would you say?
Yes. And unfortunately, I don't see a diminution of that problem in the very near future.
Why is that?
Because, first of all, we do not have the kind of manpower that could be spread throughout the archipelago that will enable teachers to deliver the education levels that, for example, teachers in New Providence can, where the resources are better and where they are more easily applied. If you ever stood in a school in the Family Islands and saw what we call the all-age school.
Oh yes, I've seen it.
You've seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, when I came out of Teachers College, I landed in a school in Scrub Hill, Long Island. 80 children in an all-age school, all by myself.
For you.
And but that is the kind of challenge that our Family Island teachers face. We are not going to overcome that easily in the Bahamas because it takes a lot of resources to do it.
It does take a lot of resources, but we have been making strides towards that in that area. where we are using technology. Like, for example,
Absolutely.
the virtual school. We now have the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education's virtual school, where like certain subjects that are on demand, those special subjects that students would usually be deprived of in the remote islands, are now being able to capture that virtually. So we are making strides in that area, but I'm sure there's still a long road ahead to ensure that it's done effectively. So we've come to a break now. We'll take a short break, and when we return, it's more on the progress of education in the Bahamas with former Director Mark Willson.
Life is a marathon, not a sprint, and high school is less than a quarter of that marathon journey. Make your years in high school count, even if you are only able to obtain a minimum grade to pass a class on exam. I don't always get the grades I want, but that never stops me from trying my best. What matters is that you always do your best and nothing less. So, the next time you feel like giving up on school because your best might not be good enough, keep going, because life is a marathon and school is less than a quarter of that journey.
Welcome back to Ed Table Talk Unplugged. And for those of you just joining us, our topic is 50 years progressing in education. An interesting discussion, a historical discussion with former director Mark Willson. It's so good to have him here as we now focus on the progress that we've been making in education, the strides that we've been making, the challenges that we have been facing and that we may be continuing to face in education. Mr. Willson, we got a lot of history and context of what education was like in the transition from pre-independence to now post-independence. But as education, it was now, like you said, we were now free. It was now not only for the selected few. Much expansion was seen from the foundational level. That's from preschool, pre-primary, to tertiary level. Let's begin at the foundation. Tell us about the journey of the development of preschools, pre-primary education.
Okay.
And primary schools.
Yes, okay. The government of the day, the post-colonial government of the day, was faced with a tremendous amount of challenges in terms of the resources needed to be plugged into the development of these islands.
Yes.
And so the view at that time was that we couldn't venture into preschool education. Preschool education was being delivered by the denominational churches.
Interesting.
And I would wish you to come and see the preschool at St. Barnabas.
That's your church, right?
That's my church.
That's how I found you.
Because that is a historical institution. It's been there from almost 1929.
Actually, my older siblings attended St. Barnabas Preschool.
Oh yes.
They did.
Oh, okay. There you go. And so while we might fault the government of the day for thinking like that, they were not absolutely wrong. But the problem is that institutions of that nature are voluntary, and therefore, in order to have a properly structured institution to deliver preschool education, you need a government-backed institution, a government-backed
Definitely.
structure to be able to do that. I don't know if I'm permitted to tell you a joke.
Go right ahead. I love to laugh.
but when the government was commissioning the C.W. Sawyer Primary School.
My former school.
Oh, really? Okay. The government invited Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer, the famous American boxer,
Yes, sir.
to come and to officiate. And I had just turned into education then. I was an assistant director. And I had to write the speech for the then Minister of Education,
Who was that?
Livingston Coakley.
Okay.
And I thought I would take a chance, and so I wrote in his speech that all of the new primary schools in New Providence would have 2 classes of preschool education right at the beginning. And 3 days later, I received a call from the Prime Minister who said,
This
who
is
asked me,
Lyndon Pindling?
that's Lyndon Pindling, yes, who asked me, when did I stand to be elected to Parliament?
That sounds like a question that he would ask. What was your response?
And I said, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm very sorry if I insulted the government. He said, no, you didn't insult the government, but you put your minister in one hell of a spot.
Oh, goodness.
So, but that was the view for a long, long time, that we needed to venture into preschool education.
Yes.
If we were going to improve education to the level that we anticipated.
Right, you have to start at the foundation. How you
Yes.
could build a house and you don't have a foundation.
can't.
Right, and I know you could probably go on and talk about the development of secondary schools, but for the sake of time, I want to get into something else. The post-colonial government, the post-colonial government made progress towards addressing the deficiencies in education, and we can probably address this if we don't have time in this segment, in the final segment. But to your knowledge, what were the deficiencies and how did these impact the initiatives of education? I'm sure there were some deficiencies along the way. For example, there was the implementation of the Teachers College, which would address one of the deficiencies, which would have been a teacher shortage.
That's right.
Right. So which meant formal and quality training for educators. So elaborate on that.
Yes. Well, of course, that was the principal deficiency, but we had others. For example, I think I've in what I have said so far, I've mentioned resources at least 3 times. Resources was a problem
Yeah.
in education. The government wanted to do a lot for its people, and it found that we were continuously asking for money, like again the Prime Minister said, you're always asking for buckets of money. You know?
Buckets of money.
Yeah. And so that was a problem. The other problem was that where we needed to give teachers assistance, for example, during my time, we had a department in education called the Inspectorate, which was run by a man called Garvin Tynes.
Oh, who the school was named after.
That's correct. And he was I think the best way to describe him as an old-time teacher. He taught for many years and came into the Ministry of Education. But it was difficult for him to travel to the islands and to give the teachers the assistance they needed. And
Mr.
so,
Wilson, I hate to cut you off, but stay tuned. We will be right back after this.
Hi, My name is Kanai Davis. I'm a 9th grade student at SEO5 in junior high school. I'm not a straight A student, but I will not give up on my goal of obtaining my high school diploma and graduating in the next few years. And you shouldn't either. Your dreams matter, your goals matter, and getting a good education will make that possible. Always remember, the race is not for the swift, but those who endure to the end, stay in school, and always put your best foot forward.
Welcome back to our final segment. You're watching Ed Table Talk Unplugged. This is the concluding segment with former director Mark Willson. It's so good to have this rich conversation with you and just to get an idea of what it was like, that transition from pre-independence to post-independence and building our education system, Mr. Willson. I know there was a lot you were saying, and pardon me again for cutting you off, but you have so much information. I want to get as much in as possible. So in the early 80s, we're going to continue our talk about teachers. In the early 80s, many educators voiced concerns of a number of challenges with the education system. And one prevailing issue was the poor condition of schools. The profusion of challenges resulted in a major teacher strike. Big things are going down. What do you recall these challenges were, and were they ever addressed?
They were major challenges. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
Although the condition of schools were not the only challenges. Money was also.
Well, money is always a challenge.
All right. And I keep telling teachers we must not forget that, because as a result of the strike, teachers are now better paid.
Okay.
And so they did achieve some things. They also achieved recognition by the government that something needed to be done about the conditions of schools,
Right.
and the environment in which we put our children. And so if you look at schools today, they are far, far better.
Yes, I would agree.
They are. And so the teacher strike did achieve some things, and teachers are to be congratulated for that part of their history.
Wonderful. Now, as the years progressed, there was a growing need for the education system to meet the demands and cater to our students' needs more accurately. We know that the curriculum is very important. That's an integral part of our education system. All right, so as a sitting director, how did you ensure that the curriculum was meeting the needs of the students? What are probably some of the initiatives and programs that you would have implemented?
Okay. You need to refer to a woman called Marjorie Davis.
Yes, sir.
Who, and you know, I don't know if I'm supposed to go down this road, but
Go ahead.
Marjorie Davis was my teacher in government high school.
She was everybody's teacher, seems like.
Seems like it. And she instituted a system of consultations.
Okay.
And so every month we met with all of the teachers in New Providence. I heard Iris Pinder talking about meeting with teachers in the Family Islands.
Yes.
That was after my time. But like I told you, a man called Garvin Tynes used to go and meet with them. Okay. And we used to gather from them all of the issues and challenges that they had. And we had a curriculum section at the time, and the director of curriculum studies would plug those in to the curriculum. And I think as a result of that, we developed a curriculum that is not bad for a developing country.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to be proud to put it under our arms and go to meetings in the family in the Caribbean,
Right.
and show it off.
right? And the curriculum, that's something, it affects us socially,
Yeah.
right? And so that is something that continues, the reformation process needs to continue. And I am happy to say that that's what we're doing. So let's talk about the GLAD examination, because the GLAD examination the purpose of the GLAD seemed to evolve. I know when I was in school, the purpose of it was not like how it is today. It seems it's more, let's see which school performs better or best. Tell me what the purpose of the exam was. And I think we even had the 8th graders taking the exam, but now it's just for 3rd grade and 6th grade. So tell us about the purpose of this GLAD exam.
Okay. I'm going to take ownership of the GLAD examination.
Okay,
I
take
wrote
ownership.
I wrote the GLAD examination.
Oh, nice to meet you, sir.
came off my pen.
Okay.
The GLAD examination is an examination which is supposed to determine the performance of students at certain levels of the education system.
Right.
Grades 3, 6, and 9.
And 9.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was 8th grade.
No.
Okay.
It's 9. It might be 8th grade now, but
No, it's only 3rd and 6th grade now, actually.
Oh. I'm a little behind.
Don't worry about that.
But and the purpose of the GLAD examination, we were constantly bombarded by the criticism that students are leaving certain levels of the school system without the ability to read at a certain level,
Right.
to compute at a certain level, and to perform general education tasks at a certain level. And so the GLAD examination was to determine where the deficiencies were
Right.
and where we found those deficiencies, to factor in remedial work
Right.
to deal with those deficiencies.
Exactly. So, yeah, but I'll just leave that right there.
Okay.
I'll leave that right there. But we're just about out of time again. But I want to hear, just quickly, briefly, what was your greatest challenge as Director of Education during your time?
Finding enough teachers.
Okay. Right.
We used to go to Britain to recruit teachers. That is
That's
not
far.
a good idea. All right. But that process put bodies in schools, and in some instances that was better than nothing. And so we used to do it. I understand we now recruit teachers from Cuba and.
Yes, we do. We do. Whenever there's a shortage,
I'm-
unfortunately.
I have never been clear as to why we cannot produce enough teachers.
Well, that's another topic for another day, but that can
Yes.
open a whole can of worms because
Yes.
it can be, is the salary, even though we've made improvements in the salary, that can be one of the turnoffs
Could be.
for teachers.
Could be.
But I want to end on this note. I want to ask you, for the next 50 years, well, we may not be here in the next 50 years, but you hope to be? Well, I hope to be too. What are your expectations? So how would you like to see education in the next 50 years? Quick wrap up.
I'd like to see the students, a student, any student you pick out of a stream, be a confident human being who is able to contribute meaningfully to his society, and who is able to raise a family
Yes.
and produce good, upstanding citizens of the Bahamas.
Yes, excellent note to end on. And it's because of persons like you why that can definitely be possible. Thank you so much for your contributions to the development of our nation, and thank you for your dialogue today. And it has certainly been a pleasure and a treat to dialogue with our former education director on his views on the progress we've made in education post-independence. As stakeholders in education, we must continue to work together to carry out the ministry's mission to ensure that all persons in the Bahamas are provided an opportunity to receive a quality education that will equip them with the necessary beliefs, knowledge, attitudes, and skills required for life, both in a democratic society, guided by Christian values, and in an interdependent, changing world. And for our viewers, if you would like to receive frequent updates on what's happening here at the Ministry of Education and Technical and Vocational Training, subscribe to 819 BMOE, that's 819-2663. Visit our website or follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and other social media platforms. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, happy Independence, Bahamas. I'm Adama Williams.